Hello, and welcome to Songs for the Struggling Artist, the blogcast. This is episode 351. My name is Emily Rainbow Davis. If this is your first time listening, amazing. Wow, welcome. If it is your 351st time listening, also welcome. Well, thanks for sticking around. So today's blog is about theater. And probably, if you project out about many other things also. It was inspired by my most recent work in the theater, doing some theater stuff. And it got some love, which was really nice. And yeah, I think other people feel this way as well. So that's always cool. So I'm going to read it to you. It is called Theater Doesn't Have to Be Toxic. Once upon a time in New York City, my friends and I started a theater company. We'd have readings and rehearsals at our apartments. We made molds for masks in my kitchen. We had snacks and drinks and a generally lovely time. We wrote our first fundraising letter at Jaffa Cafe in the East Village and rubbed one of their Buddha statues' bellies for luck. The bumps in the road were quickly smoothed, and we threw some fun post-show parties. We also made some pretty kick-ass magical shows, if I do say so myself. It went like this for a few years, but then issues of sustainability started to become more serious. There were the questions of how we could sustain the work as the city got more expensive, and the questions of sustainability in our personal lives and the things we did for money or our relationships got very loud. I could see that my career as a teaching artist was not going to be sustainable either, so I decided I needed to go to grad school so I could bring myself and my company to the next level. But what was the next level? Was it a particular marker of success? Was it financial stability? I hoped those things were possible. I thought they would be. But I think I was looking in the wrong place. I went to graduate school thinking that a credential might offer me the possibility of a life in academia, where I could bring my company along with me. Part of why I chose the program I did was because one of our teachers was doing just that there. She ran the dance department, and her company, in residence, performed there at least once a year. I was interested in that model. But then I went there and saw what was happening, and a couple of months in academia killed that dream fairly quickly. It was not for me. Somehow, I'd imagined that making art in a college would be intellectually rigorous and artistically supportive. Instead, it was lazy, petty, toxic, and insular, and hardly anyone was having any fun. If there's one thing that I relied on heavily and enjoyed pretty consistently when I first started making shows in New York, it was the abundance of goodwill. We didn't have a lot of money to pay our people, but we worked hard to have a good time, and we really had a good time. We generally really liked and admired one another and lived in an atmosphere of mutual respect. In graduate school, every decision I made was challenged, and not in an artistically interesting way. More like everyone constantly questioned my judgment, and respect was in short supply. I had to fight for even the smallest things. There were power struggles, like when faculty members accused me of stealing their actors. There were issues with the shop. There were issues with the teams. I heard that the entire design department discussed if I knew what I wanted, because the costume designer had given me capes and tights in her designs over and over again when I explicitly reiterated that I wanted no capes and no tights over and over and over again every time we met. I was open to a lot of things, but if there was one thing I knew for sure, it was that I did not want to see any tights or capes. Despite my best efforts, My actors were in capes and tights and a terrifying array of rainbow colors for their fittings. None of us were happy about it. I let the designer have a couple of capes in the end because I was so sick of fighting. Every good thing begun there turned rotten eventually. I'd gone there hoping to figure out a way to make my life and my company sustainable. And I came out ready to quit theater entirely. I didn't. And in the intervening years, I have made a lot of things I'm proud of. But it's been a long time since the specter of toxic theater making hasn't haunted me. When I first started in New York City, I really felt strongly that enough goodwill could overcome any hardship. We had issues here or there, but they weren't a big deal. But my immersion in toxic methods and patterns in grad school and beyond made it hard to create with any kind of genuine optimism. Even with the nicest, safest people, I was braced for disaster. It's taken a long time to clear my system of all the disorder that my time in grad school created. The program was only 2 years, but it has taken 15 to 16 years to reset all the damage it caused. If I had it to do all over again, I wouldn't go. The degree has done almost nothing for me. It gave me a handful of underpaid college courses as an adjunct, and that's about it. It did nothing for my personal sustainability and almost killed my company entirely. But I didn't set out to write about why going to grad school was a bad idea for me. I'm here to tell you about those first magical years when we were awash in possibility and confidence and love and hope, and how this year, for the first time in a while, I could remember what that felt like. I know from this side of things how incredibly rare sustainability in theater is. I know a lot more about the business of theater making and what it takes to make a living wage from it. The landscape for the arts has changed a great deal over the last 20 plus years. I have a much clearer sense of how all of it fits together and where there is space to hope and dream, and where there is opportunity to advance, and where there is not. I have become wildly less ambitious than I used to be, at least less ambitious in the usual way. I no longer dream of a big Broadway debut. But I suppose I have become more ambitious, and that I am striving for a kinder, warmer, more human, and more fun way of doing things. When I started, I really thought that the way it worked was you made something really cool and a big shot or a big shot's assistant came to see it. And then good shows would be magically transported to Broadway. It was a very sweet, naive sort of dream. But not harmless, though, because I kept feeling like I failed when I made things and they didn't go anywhere. The thing I'd like to go back in time and tell myself was that the thing itself was the gold. The process, the fun, the parties, the rehearsals, the hanging out and making something we were proud of, that was the miracle. I'm sure the me of 20 years ago would have rolled her eyes at a future me coming to tell her to enjoy every minute. But it's not so much that I'd want that earlier version of me to enjoy it while it was happening, because I was enjoying it while it was happening. It's more that I wish she could have continued to enjoy it while she was on a roll, to have continued to make work with people she liked in an atmosphere of mutual respect and appreciation, even if it meant giving up some of her ambitions or getting a different kind of day job. If I had it to do over again, I'd have let my hopes for sustainability and professionalism drift away and just luxuriated in our process. It's possible that might have actually led me to the success I found so elusive, but if it didn't, I'd have had a lot more years of very pleasurable art making. That's the dream for my younger self now. And maybe this self too. One of my favorite responses to this piece was from an artistic director of a tiny indie theater company, sort of like mine in that, it's like one person driving it. And, I don't know her very well. I know she's a bit younger than I am. But the fact that this spoke to her and she posted it on her theater company's page, and I think it spoke to her, and I feel like it's speaking to her at a time that she can use it, she's I think she's at the beginning in a way that, I'm just not at this point. This is not the beginning anymore for me. So there's something like, oh, maybe, maybe I caught her at just the right moment. And I'm just glad that it spoke to her. Anyway, I don't know what the story is. We don't know each other well, but it pleased me quite a bit. And other people who are similarly in this game, I think they know of what I speak. And this may apply to other fields. I don't really know. But, yeah. So, I was going to try and learn Toxic by Britney Spears. And I did work on it a little bit. But I have to say, I just don't really fundamentally understand the song. I think it was a really important song for a particular generation. I missed it entirely while it was happening. And, it just doesn't make sense to me. I can't make it stick in my brain. I'm sure I could with a lot more focus and time and whatnot. But also, ultimately, this piece is not really about the toxicity. It's really about the good parts, the niceness of it. So I decided I'm just going to leave Toxic to the side. At some point in the future, maybe I will learn Toxic for something else that actually requires a dive into toxicity. So no Toxic today. But I am going to give you instead a song from the musical that we made in 2005, The Great God Money. I have given you, I think, the opening song not so long ago. And so I'm going to give you one of the songs towards the end, because this sort of honeymoon period ended with this show. So it was the last show within the honeymoon period, let's say, because right after this show, I went to grad school. And at this point, it was already winding down. My two colleagues, the other two angles of the triangle, had already left New York by the time we did the show. But we'd been working on the show for a little while. It was a long process, a really long sort of research and development phase. I don't remember exactly when we started, but I feel like it was maybe 2 years we were working on that show altogether. I'm not sure. Anyway, this show was the last hurrah in that sweet spot. So I'm going to play you a song from that in a moment. Meanwhile, thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, awesome. Please tell someone about it. Like, review, subscribe. If you would like to support it with dollars or any other currency, that would be amazing. Patreon.com/Emily R. Davis is the prime spot, but there's also Ko-fi, there's PayPal. All those links are in the show notes. My fundraiser for my residency in Crete is now at 90% over on Ko-fi. So if you want to push that over the edge, that'd be extra specially amazing. And thank you, ultimately, for listening. So, this song is the sort of don't know if I'd call it a finale. Like, this musical was not your typical, it wasn't, like, we didn't know this show was a musical. We started developing it, where we were devising it, we were working it out, we're figuring it out, and at one point an actor was like, what if it's a musical? And everyone was like, yes! So we turned it into a musical, but, it's not a musical. Like, it doesn't sound like a musical. It doesn't feel like a musical. There is music in it, and I think that idea of it as a musical helped us complete it. But it's probably more accurate to call it a play with music. Maybe. I don't know. All of the songs are pretty short for a musical. Like, there's no space for, like, a dance number in any of them. In any case, this last song from the music, there's another song after this in the show, but this one is sort of the big number where the main character has been looking for the great god money the whole show, and then in this number she meets them. And they're basically 5 different characters that all are different personifications of the idea of money. And then they sing this song to her. I wrote this with Dmitri Kalmar, who was our music director on the show. And Dmitri's so great. What a great human. So I think the way this song went, and, we were hammering these out like really fast. But I think this one was a case of me writing the lyrics and then Dmitri writing the music. I think that's what happened with this one. We are the two of us singing it together. We're sort of trying to mimic the trading off of parts. So because it's multiple actors, multiple characters, we're I think each handling at least 2 voices, if not 3. I can't quite remember. Anyway, here it is. This is the Great God Money song from The Great God Money.
Don't you know?
Money is just part of the flow.
It's a concept, an idea,
which you discovered right here. Now you're hoping to make it all clear.
It's a means, not an end. Just what you use to buy, borrow, and lend. All the things on which you depend. But it's never about money in the end.
It's a tool for looking at your life. Just a tool like a surgeon's knife. It can cut you, that's for sure.
But it just might be the cure to help create what you intend. It will show you how far you can bend. You don't believe it, but you can pretend
that it's never about money in the end. Yes, it's never about money. No, it's always about money. Yes, it's never about money
in the end.